Double Fries No Slaw, Sunday night, September 14th. Richie, there have been 4 weeks of college football, 3 regular weeks, right? And week 0. And we'll get to the AP poll in a minute. So maybe I shouldn't jump ahead with this. But if I'd have told you where FSU was ranked a month ago, I think you would have probably said, I don't know, check into some kind of mental health facility and get your head checked for that. But a good start to this season. And Florida State back in action after a bye week coming up this weekend. How's your weekend been, though, Richie?
It's been a really good weekend. Lindsay actually started working at my hospital this week part-time as she's going through nursing school. So that'll be interesting. It was nice. It's always bye weeks are always fun because you can just sit back and enjoy the games, right? There's no stress, no pressure. Even if we had played Kent State this week, that takes away 4 hours of me watching other games, right? So I think it was a really good, productive weekend. Actually, we got a lot done. Went to church this morning, all that good stuff. But yeah, had a great weekend and great, like you said, we'll talk about the AP polls, but great to see what popped up today.
The stress-free weekends, which obviously,
and the Bucks didn't play
Monday Night Football. Look at you.
Yeah.
The stress-free weekends have been very nice. Even last week, playing East Texas A&M was really nice. And then, kind of stress-free this weekend. Hey, and then the week after that, super stress-free Saturday because we play on Friday night. And then the week after that, we can all freak out for the entire 7 days.
Yes.
Which we will talk a little bit about that. And not in a bad way. Nobody get into my comments like in a bad way. Just, how the stress of a big game goes. Shoot, that could be a top 5 matchup when we get to it.
Yeah.
So we'll see how the next couple of weeks go. Need to take care of these next 2 games, which I think we will, but we'll talk about them as they happen. Double Fries No Slaw brought to you by Guthrie's, 1818 West Tennessee Street, 2550 North Monroe, and 2870 Appalachian Parkway. Make sure that when you are in town, you are stopping by Guthrie's. I've got some friends going in town this week, and I told them you got to stop by. You got to go get the kids Guthrie's, even if you're trying. You might be trying to eat better. Your kids have to get it. So, anyway, make sure you stop by and tell our friends hello and that you heard about them on Double Fries No Slaw. Richie, start here. There was this narrative shortly after and I don't want to buy so much into this. But there was this narrative after week 1 that Alabama was just a terrible team. Like this was going to be their 2-10 year. They stink. Maybe they go 4-8. DeBoer's getting fired. And I understand who they've played, right? ULM, not a great team. Ranked in like the low 100s when it comes to FPI. And Wisconsin's not a great team by any means. But the way that they have absolutely dominated, I believe, I should have looked the stat up before we started talking, but I believe that like Ty Simpson is something like 89% for his passes since the Florida State game. So Alabama jumps up in the AP poll. That forces Florida State to leap up over 3 teams. Illinois, Notre Dame because they lost, and then Texas because they look like absolute dog crap. And so Florida State up to 7th in the AP poll. I think people are starting to learn, it's 2 games in, right? We've talked about this. This is the 6th of the season. Got a long way to go. I think people are starting to learn that Florida State's actually probably a pretty good team this year. And again, if I'd have told you a month ago that Florida State would be ranked in the top 7 right now and have a chance for a top 5 matchup in Doak against Miami, which we'll get to that in a minute, I think you just said, TJ, you're pretty crazy. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, we both had Florida State losing to Alabama in week 1, which I think was a pretty fair prediction on our parts based on everything we'd seen last year in the roster that Alabama has. But Alabama just walloping Wisconsin, I think, was huge for Florida State because, we're kind of getting the extra SEC bump just because they want to keep bumping Alabama up, right? It's just a fact. They want Alabama to be in the top 10 by next week or the week after, but they cannot do that. It's kind of almost ironic because that's what kept us out of the playoff in 2023 because they could not have put Alabama in without putting Texas in since Texas beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa that year. So I think we're going to get that artificial bump, so to speak. I don't know if we're the 7th best team in the country, but damn if it doesn't feel great to wake up and see that AP poll come out and say, okay, like, but this is what Florida State should be. And yeah, we'll talk about the Miami game in a little bit, but looking ahead to a potential top 5 matchup, that is just amazing. And really, the only hurdle in Florida State's way at this point is a Friday night game in Charlottesville. And if they handle business there like they should, Florida State and Miami could both be top 5. And, we love to give Miami a hard time. And I will talk about this later. Miami looks good. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say is I don't know who the best team in the country is. And so
Nobody does.
I don't know that I kind of agree with you that I don't know that we're the 7th best team in the country, but I also don't know that we're not. I don't know that we're not better.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we definitely are, but I mean, Ohio State was struggling with Ohio at halftime yesterday. I think they were up by 10. Texas looked terrible against UTEP. Penn State looks fine. LSU needed 5 interceptions. They scored 10 points, not off of turnovers. We'll talk about that game here in a minute. But none of these teams, Georgia needed a miracle against Tennessee. Now, I do think Georgia and Tennessee are both good teams. And so Oregon, fell 2 spots in the rankings because they haven't played anybody yet. Now Oregon's taking care of their business. They won yesterday by 20. They've done what they needed to do. But I don't know, and I do think Miami's good. I'm not trying to, listen, I hate them, but I think Miami has the most impressive resume in college football right now. They've got they've got 2 of the best wins. A win over Notre Dame, who I think is still really talented, even though they lost yesterday, and just an absolute demolishing of USF, who beat 2 ranked teams. So yeah, I mean, I hate to admit that on air, but yeah, Miami should probably be the number 1 team in the country based on resume alone, not preseason hype or whatever. And with that said, I think Florida State has a top 5 impressive resume. I'd probably have them ahead of Penn State or Oregon at this moment, but I'm not going to complain about 7th. It is crazy though. It is crazy to see how this year has gone. And we'll talk about some upcoming matchups. Obviously, it was a bye week, so we're not breaking some kind of crazy news or anything on here this week because it was just a good time for people to get away and enjoy stress-free football. But it is crazy to think where the team is right now compared to where they were. Certainly this time last year, but even where our perception of them was a year ago. I do think it's also pretty. It's pretty important to remember that it is only 2 games, right? And I think that Mike will do a really good job of this. But you just hope that they don't read their press clippings so much, right? And I think that what Mike can and will lean on, Richie, is the fact that nobody else, people like them now, right? They're trendy now. They're a sexy pick now. I think they have the 2nd best odds to win the conference right now behind Miami. They should be in Charlotte at this point. And I'm praying and hoping they do go to Charlotte because I really want to go this year. But win, lose, or draw. Okay. Could you imagine getting to play Miami in a rematch Charlotte? That? Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but that would be a lot of fun. So it's important to not think that you've arrived. And I do think that Mike can very much sell they like you right now, but they didn't like you a month ago. They thought you sucked a month ago. And so if he can continue to drive that home and they can play the inspired brand of football that they've played through a 6th of the season, their ranking will only go up.
Yeah, I think when you, even in, a new college football game on EA, on PlayStation or Xbox, whatever you play, when you start a dynasty, you can pick what your coach is. And, one of them is motivator. I think that's what Mike is, right? He's a motivator. He's certainly not a recruiter, at least not to this point. I think he somewhat is a game day guy, but that might be enhanced with Gus Malzahn being here. But he's definitely a motivator.
He hired hella good recruiters. Coordinators, though.
Yeah, he certainly did. And with UCLA firing the coach, I'm very concerned with Tony White right now. But we'll talk about that in a few weeks if once their hot board starts getting put together. But yeah, I think about half this team was on this roster last year. They remember what it was like to go to class after they lost to Georgia Tech. And then after they got embarrassed by SMU. And then, after they didn't win a game for 2 months. You know, hopefully Mike reminds them of that. Says, remember that feeling. Don't let that feeling ever come back again and focus on each week. I think that Virginia game is a game Florida State should win, but it could potentially be a trap game. A Friday night road game in the ACC is tough. You know, weird things happen. That's where Florida State lost their first ever ACC game back in 1995 when work done was allegedly stopped short at about the half yard line. You know, I think Mike is, now that he has Gus Malzahn, who I think he fully trusts to run this offense, he can sit back and be the CEO, which is the model I prefer. Now, there are some colleges where the head coach is a play caller, whether it be, you know, a Dan Lanning or a Kirby Smart calling the defense, however you look at it. I prefer the CEO model where you surround yourself with good coordinators and then run the program. And I think he keeps the players in check. You know, Kent State coming up, I won't use an ill reference, but the Kent State game could be a ugly. I'll say that, and it should be. They are the worst team in the FBS by almost any metric you look at, and then it's Virginia. I think Virginia is a huge game for Florida State. Probably one of the most important games on the schedule for Florida State, given the upset of Alabama, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I thought it was before too. You were talking about Mike as a CEO, and I thought it was a really good point. I was talking with somebody earlier about, and it wasn't football related, but just like when you're expected, when somebody's expected to do well in an area, and you don't really view them as you don't really view them as having a great talent in another area. You were talking about the video game, like, oh well, we thought he was this archetype, but he ended up being this other one. We expected Mike to be really good in the area of scheming things up and play calling. And so you kind of put him into this box and you say he's going to be better here. And just through life and through circumstances, and you know, whether that's something you're going through personally or whether we'll apply it to FSU football for the example. But now he is having to take over more of that CEO role. And I think we looked at it, 9 months ago, 10 months ago, and then every month up since the last month or so, and thought like Mike's probably not going to work out here. But because he's exceeded expectations or potentially exceeded expectations, becoming more of the CEO, becoming more of the motivator, hiring really good people around him and getting out of the way, I think he may exceed all expectations that we ever had, right? Because he already had like really good things that he was great at. And now he's put good people around him to be able to do that. And so I thought that was I do think that's a really good point you make about, man, can he transition more to that role as opposed to the role of what you put him into this box? And you said when Mike was hired, we all thought, yeah, this is a guy that we think is going to bring an elite offense, and that's going to be his calling card because he brought great offenses at Arizona State, Memphis, and everywhere he's been. But now you're kind of seeing him in a different role, a different light than you've ever seen him. And that's huge because that's where football has changed. And there's so much more that happens outside of just the X's and O's that might be what's most needed for Florida State. So I think that CEO point is a really good one that you make. I don't have a ton more on that, but hopefully the example made sense to anybody out there that was listening for an example. So let's give Sleeper some love. Richie and I do a more or less pick 'em every week on our Wednesday night preview show. I guess we didn't have a Wednesday night preview show last week, so we didn't do it. But if you are, you can literally go and pick stuff that's happening right now as the NFL is on. So we appreciate you guys that are watching us instead of the NFL because college football is and always will be better. But you can pick stuff on the NFL. You can do eliminator leagues. You can do fantasy leagues. You can do anything you're looking for. We play the more or less game where you pair a couple of players' stats, whether that's touchdowns, receptions, yards, whatever you're looking for, interceptions, points on PATs, whatever you're looking for. You can do it there with the more or less game. So let us make some money with you on Wednesday nights, and make sure that you do have the Sleeper app downloaded. Make sure you're also checking their terms of use because terms and conditions do apply. Appreciate Sleeper for their support. What do we have next? All right, so let's talk a little bit about that. It's a Miami and UF thoughts. And then we'll talk about UF just a little bit in this too, but more on Miami. Let's start with this though. Are you surprised that so everybody wants, and I know we hate ESPN, we hate the dog, we hate everything, right? We're just miserable people. Maybe not so much these last 3 weeks, but I mean, you want game day to come, right? Does it surprise you a little bit that game day is going down to Miami versus Florida? There is a ranked on ranked matchup in the SEC with Oklahoma and Auburn. Now, I know they've already seen Oklahoma this year, but there's a ranked on ranked matchup in the SEC, and they're going down to what is now a 9-point spread, opened up at 8.5, and it will probably climb through the week. Does it make you think they won't come for game day, or if it's a top 7 matchup at worst, do you think they're there?
I think Kirk would not want to come, but I think as a whole, when you look at the majority of the fan base, myself included, I'm over the whole snub, but when it comes to blaming Kirk, like I'm not over the snub. I'll never get over that snub, right? But I think they would be welcomed happily. I've been to game day in Tallahassee more times than I can count. Right, like there were years where they were there, 2 times a year, and I was at every single one of them. So I'm a little surprised they are going after Florida. DJ Lagway throwing 5 interceptions against LSU and just looking completely discombobulated. So, I don't see the value. I don't think is Florida even ranked. I don't think they're even ranked anymore.
Right. No, they dropped out last week.
Yeah. So I get it because it's a battle of the Sunshine State. So I guess I can see that angle, and they want to reward Miami for a strong first 3 weeks with, 2 top 25 wins, which is very impressive. And, winning in dominant fashion yesterday. So they probably haven't been there in a long time, maybe since Notre Dame in 2017, if I had to guess. But
you might be right. I thought they were down there recently, but go ahead. Sorry.
I'm not sure, but yeah. So I think it's them rewarding. And part of me, the inside of me thinks, okay, they're also doing this because they don't want Florida State, Miami, Clemson, North Carolina to leave the conference. So ESPN is saying, let's throw them a bone because it is a rivalry game. Let them have their moments. It'll be fun. But I think if Miami handles business, which I expect they will this weekend against Florida, and Florida State handles their business against Virginia, they will be in Tallahassee. There's no doubt in my mind, because in the 90s, there was nothing better. I know a lot of people hate this, but ABC noon kickoff used to be the premier game every single week in the 90s. And I would love to see Florida State and Miami be a noon kickoff. I know the people going to the game are listening.
You're a psycho. No, get out.
Yeah, I know the people listening.
Thank you.
Are probably saying, no, I want the 8 o'clock game. No, I want old school Florida State Miami ABC, where they finish game day inside of the newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium, which I've heard from many people it just is amazing.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said except for that noon kickoff crap. I'm fine with 3:30, but get out of here with that noon stuff. I want that place liquored up, bro, and we ain't got time for that.
Oh, we'll be liquored up. I used to wake up get to the tailgate spot at 6 a.m. when I was in school there.
Yeah, well, that's when they'll open if
for an 8 p.m. game
now. But yeah, the noon, the pass on the noon thing, man. I'm done with shrimp and grits at tailgates. But
it's eggs,
what is cool about it is Florida State, Miami. And again, I'll give them their credit. They're a really good team this year. I think they have deficiencies. I think Florida. We'll preview that more as we get closer. But I do think that they're a really good team, and I think that's gonna be a really tough test. I'm not even convinced. Oh, we're definitely winning that. We're good, and I think we're good too. And I think we match up well with them. I think their secondary is suspect, and if the offensive line can hold up, I think we'll have a good chance to win that. But I do think that they're really good, and this is honestly what you want. I want them to lose every game possible. I was arguing with a friend about this recently. Like, do you want them to be good for when you play them for strength of schedule, or do you just want their program to crater? And I'm like, yeah, they can crater, right? Like, we'll cheer for Alabama to go 11-1 and Clemson to figure things out. Which, my gosh, are they a mess? But I kind of do want them. I mean, I want them to beat Florida. I bury Florida even further because I don't want to miss out on game day. If they lose that, I don't think we get it. But if that's a number 1 team versus, or a top 3 or 4 team versus a 5-7 team. I would think it would come. The last time game day went to Miami, from what I can tell. Now Miami was on it when they went out to Cal last year for that game. And then they've been down to Miami for playoff games and stuff like that. From the last time that I can tell, the last time that there was game day this is 2020 is when they were down there for the Florida State Miami game, which is kind of crazy because Florida State, I don't know why
horrific.
that was the case. But it was early in the year. It was week 3. I think Florida State was maybe 1-1 at that point. Maybe they had won I know they lost the opening game to Georgia Tech. Maybe they had won their second game. Yeah, that was the out of conference game. So they were 1-1, and you thought Florida State would be, a little bit better than they obviously finished with 3-6. But 52-10. So let's not have a repeat of that.
Yeah. Well, it's a stat that I've thrown out on this show before, but in the 90s, Florida and Florida State played each other 11 times, if you include postseason. And every single one of those 11 games was a top 10 matchup. That's what, I grew up with. Yeah, of course I want Miami to lose every single week. If they're, down by 3 late or up by 3 late with the other team having the ball, of course I'm going to be rooting against them. But there's something so special about a Florida State or a Florida State Miami game where there's a lot on the line, right? Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. And that's why I will not be rooting for Miami this weekend, but I do hope Miami wins.
Listen, I'll tell you, whichever team has more orange on their uniforms on Saturday is the one that I'll root against, because nothing good is orange, of course. But
you like oranges?
I'll say this, I won't say that I'm rooting for, but I would prefer Miami win.
Yes,
for the matchup. I will tell you, the freak out for Miami fans if they lose to Billy Napier and 5 interception DJ Uiagalelagwe, that will be phenomenal. But I do think that I think Miami's going to win anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Obviously, no matter who I cheer for. But Florida's an absolute dumpster fire. We can talk about them real quick, and then we can move off this. And Clemson's getting close. I think Georgia Tech's good. In fact, I think we need to beat Miami because I'm worried about Georgia Tech sneaking into the ACC championship now that they have the win up over Clemson. But Florida's a dumpster fire. I mean, I will say this, their defense is good. I don't think we go in there and put 40 points on them or anything like that. But, man, they're an absolute mess. I don't think they'll have a head coach when we get to that game. And then I wonder, once they fire Billy, how many guys just say, I'm out of here. Because I do think one thing he does really, really well is he recruits really well, and he does a good relationship with his players. And so they all play hard for him. Now they don't play very well. Obviously, Lagway was terrible last night, but they do play hard for him. And that defense stood in there last night, really only giving up 10 points. I thought that was pretty impressive on the road in Death Valley. If you'd told me UF's defense was going to give that up, but man, they are such a cluster, and they can't figure anything out there at UF. And maybe they'll play better through the year. I mean, I think every game on their schedule is pretty losable. We'll see. Arch Manning versus Lagway will be the worst QB matchup in the SEC, which I thought it was going to be the best matchup possible going into the season.
Yeah.
But, we'll talk about FPI here in a minute and just kind of what ESPN's projecting out. But, I mean, the games that we thought were going to be really, really tough this year aren't looking so tough at this moment. Miami certainly is. But, that one there at the end of the season, it's never easy to go win in the swamp. I get it. But I think you've got a really good chance to go and, finish off a terrible season, kind of like Florida did to us last year.
Yeah, well, one thing that really stuck out to me, because I watched the entire game start to finish with LSU and Florida last night, and they are just so extremely undisciplined. Yeah. It was almost, you think back to last week when the Florida player, I forget who it was, decides right in front of a ref to spit on one of the USF players. They had a huge play, 87-yard touchdown that was called back by a hold, and it was obvious hold. It wasn't just a hold, it was a tackle. The offensive lineman just literally tackled the guy. They just seem like an extremely undisciplined team. They have a ton of talent. They really do. And despite the 5 interceptions, I think Lagway he has all the tools to be very, very good. There's a reason he was in the top 5 of pretty much anyone's Heisman odds heading into the season. He's played his way out of that at this point. There's, especially with having 2 losses now, but yeah, just the undisciplinedness of this team is what really, I guess it doesn't surprise me because they haven't been super disciplined year after year, but they have accumulated a good bit of talent, in my opinion. I think they have good players at almost every layer on defense. They have capable running backs. Lagway, we all thought would be a very good quarterback. Clearly, the 5 interceptions. Did I hear right on the broadcast that the record at UF was 9 interceptions in one game? Or was I
just like back in like the 50s or something?
That's insane, by the way. But yeah, no, I'm really surprised, but I do think that will be a tough game because a lot of things will have to, we'll have to weigh a lot of different things, because if Billy Napier's been fired by then, which I personally think he will be, I'll go on the record saying that right now. I don't think he's coaching the Florida game, but thinking about when Florida State went and played an interim coach up at the Swamp, we lost that game with the absolute worst onside kick attempt I've ever seen in my life. But yeah,
forgot about that. Thanks for the painful reminder.
Yeah, no, but I do think they do have talent, but it's just not clicking. And I think, to your point, I think they will fight for Billy Napier, but once he's fired, because he will be, you look at the stretch coming up that they have to play against, and it's going to get ugly, and the boosters and the money will speak for itself. So he will not be the coach at University of Florida when they play Florida State this year, is my opinion.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. I'll say this. I said that last year too. Like, it's not the first year I've said that, but I certainly thought that'd be the case last year too. Now, I don't know if it would have mattered last year, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. Maybe you do keep him around because you know that you don't want all the whole team to opt out. Maybe that's
who do you hire?
Yeah. Just hire behind the scenes and let him coach the thing out like you did Zook. Although obviously that didn't work out real well for us. No. One other game, so after that game was over, like, talk about getting your, just absolutely reamed. Did you see Notre Dame blow it at the end of the game? Like, I know that tanks Miami's schedule or strength of schedule and stuff, but like 4th and 11, how do you do this? I like Marcus Freeman a lot, and so I was frustrated. And plus, my anti-SEC narrative was lacking because only one SEC team lost out of conference yesterday. But no, they didn't. It was Florida. They played an SEC team, so no, nobody lost out of conference. But Notre Dame pissed me off yesterday, and I hope the ass chewing that Marcus Freeman gave them was worth it.
I am a huge Marcus Freeman fan, but I just felt like, okay, this is going to happen. 4th down, and then
I thought they had it.
It was a tough catch. It was a tough catch too. It wasn't even an easy catch. And once they got it, I was like, okay, this is cool. Yeah, that's all I did yesterday was just sit on the couch and watch college football all day. All right, now I'm blanking. What game went into overtime yesterday? Where the kicker missed the field goal in regulation.
Oh, it was the Georgia game. That was the game of the day. Yeah. That might have been the game of the year. Holy crap.
Yeah, that kid has to go to school tomorrow.
Oh, brutal.
I'm sorry. Like, he did redeem himself in overtime by hitting right down the middle. But man, you could have won the game in regulation.
Didn't it just feel like Georgia was going to do that? Like, it just never felt like they were really when they got that 4th down. They got 4th and like 12 or 4th and 8 or something, or maybe it was 4th and 6. I don't know, but yeah, when they got that, I was like, "Wow, Georgia's winning this game." And I know they had a chance at the field goal, but anyway, all right, let's give Garnet and Gold some love, and then let's get to our last segment. Shorter show tonight, but appreciate all you that are tuned in and active in the chat and everywhere else. So, garnetandgold.com. Make sure you're using code NOSLAW, NOSLAW, for 15% off of your order. We appreciate Garnet and Gold for their support. Listen, shout out my guy Pat. Pat just went and got some of the new Nike shoes that are out. I don't know what they're called. Sorry, Air Maxes or something. And I wore those the other day to the game, which were great. I'll probably wear them again on Saturday as long as it doesn't rain, because anything white I ruin. But shout out Garnet and Gold, man. Make sure that you are shopping there and there only for all of your FSU gear. Listen, I've got people literally telling me like, "Hey, I'm coming in town for this game. I'm what's the Garnet and Gold? What do I order? This, that, and the other. I want to dress up for the game. Make sure you're doing that at Garnet and Gold only. Appreciate them for their support. All right, Richie, last thing today. Listen, I hate to give ESPN a lot of love or any credit at all, but we have continued to monitor this, and it's not perfect by any means when you look at FPI and what we're ranked, and we know FPI is not perfect anyway. But long story short, FPI is saying that Florida State's going to go 9-3, and I think as the season goes on, they will start to adjust this. But some of the games that we thought were maybe more toss-ups, FPI is heavily leaning Florida State now. They give Florida State nearly an 80% chance to beat Pitt, 72 to beat Stanford, 95 to beat Wake, 62 against Virginia Tech, 64 against NC State. The UVA game is 60% with Florida State going on the road on a Friday night. Obviously, Kent State is 99. The three that are not heavily leaning Florida State's favor are still fairly favorable to FSU. Miami's a 34% chance. Clemson's a 47% chance, and Florida's 45%. So they're basically telling you that Florida and Clemson are a coin flip, and maybe you're a slight dog in those two just due to being on the road. Now, they still have Miami maybe a little higher than I would expect at 33. We'll see how we play the next 2 weeks and how Miami plays against Florida and see if that gap narrows a little bit. But again, not trying to buy so much into an ESPN metric that we all hate, but it's the only one that gets updated with every single game. So that is what we're going with. If somebody else, if on three, I texted Newberg and I was like, dude, tell Shannon to come up with his own metric. Like, what's he doing here? Like, I know they're more into the recruiting and stuff, but why CBS or why these other ones haven't come up with this, I don't, who knows? But because ESPN does it, and they, a lot of times, more often than not, their percentage for games are pretty accurate. I would love to see like a breakdown of how they've done like over the last 5 years with FPI or, when they predict these games. But so Florida State getting way closer in some of these big matchups. What are your thoughts here?
So we didn't plan for this. So I apologize for putting this on you, TJ. I want to go through game by game and give our own percentages of what we think, because I think the listeners would love to hear that.
Dude, I'm good off the cuff. Let's go, man.
Let's go. So start it off.
Kent State, I'll go 100%. I'll say 99's low.
100%.
What's the next one? UVA 6. So that they got it at 60.
I'd put it at 55. Just
I'm a little higher.
On the road on a Friday night, it's just, I don't know.
So Friday night, so like playing on a Friday night does not factor in. I know that weird things happen there, and so that's like that wouldn't factor into an FPI. So that might be why they're a little bit higher than you.
This is the RPI.
Say what?
This is the RPI, the Richie Performance Index.
We moved to baseball. I'll go a little higher. I go like 70, 75. I think these two teams line up 10 times. I think we win 7 or 8 of them.
All right. What's next?
Miami after that.
So I'd give us at Doak. I know I just said I wanted a noon game, but it's probably going to be a night game, especially if game day is there. So 8 p.m. at Doak. If you've never been to a huge home game at Doak at night, do it. Trust me, guys, do it. I would give Florida State a 46% chance of winning that game.
Yeah, I was going to say 45. I'd give Miami a slight edge because I think they're a little better in the trenches until I see us play another Power 4 opponent. If you go out and beat the hell out of UVA, then maybe I'll change my mind a little bit. We'll see how they look. I do think, again, we're not previewing Miami at this point, but I do think that Beck is good, still makes too many mistakes. He should have had a couple of picks that USF just didn't capitalize on. And I think their secondary is weak. So there are places to attack them. I'd give Miami a slight edge. I think 55-45 is fine. I think that's going to be a great game, one way or the other. After that's Pitt.
80%. I think it should be an easy win, which I did not think coming into the season.
Yeah, I know you're not supposed to play the transitive property game, but you see West Virginia lose to Ohio, and then you see Pitt lose to West Virginia, and I know that's a rivalry, the backyard brawl. I was watching it yesterday on the other TV besides the Georgia-Tennessee game, but I'm not that big of a believer in Pitt. I thought they'd be more physical this year. It was one game. You don't want to count them out of just everything. Man, playing that game in Doak, I'd say 80% is great. I think you're right there. Is it Stanford after that?
You tell me.
Yeah, Stanford, they got us at 72%. Would they beat BC last night? Yeah, going out to the West Coast is tough. They've got 72. I'll go 75. I think you win that 3 out of 4 times.
So I'd say 65 just because college kids are not used to a 5-hour flight to play a football game. You know, in the NFL, it happens more often than not. But when that does happen in the NFL, they typically do not cover the spread. That's one of the easiest betting hacks in the NFL is, you know, if a West Coast team comes to play a 1 o'clock game on the East Coast. I do think jet lag is a very real thing. I certainly felt it when we were out in Ireland together last year, TJ. But
That was the Guinness.
yeah, it might have been the Guinness, might have been the bourbon, might have been the 12 milligram nicotine patches. I don't know, but yeah, I'll say 65%. It's a game they should win.
Interesting how high they are on Wake. They got 94% for Wake. I'll just agree with that. I think 95% is fine. I think going to 100 on that's kind of, I mean, you can lose games, right? So I think going to 100 on anything but Kent State's crazy. So I think they're pretty accurate here. 95 is probably what I'd say.
Yeah, and I think Kent State is an easy 100% for me. But I'll say 90%. I'll take it a little lower than the ESPN FPI on this one, just because you never know. But you know, there's still, you know, it's like Bobby always used to say, they're on scholarship too. So I'll go 90%. So very confident, but you never know what could happen.
Clemson after this, they've got it at 46 ish, right? I'll go 46.9. So they got 47. Yeah, I'll go 55 FSU. I know it's on the road at Clemson. I know that's crazy, but if these two teams played each other this weekend, I would pick FSU, right? We'll see how the next 6 weeks go, but I would pick FSU in this game if we played each other right now. So 55.
If this game was at Doak, I'd probably feel confident going 65%. I'm going to call it 50-50. You know, Clemson is still talented. Cade Klubnik has not looked good this year, but he's still a very talented quarterback. He's shown us in the past his tools and what he's able to do. And that is a tough environment. In 2013, it was not, right? Because we just came out and dominated from the first snap. But I've been to Clemson 4 different times for Florida State games. And every time I've been extremely impressed with how that atmosphere is. So I'll call this a coin flip 50-50.
So next up is Virginia Tech, who just fired their coach, Brent Pry. Yeah, this is one that maybe I should not overlook it so much, but they've got it at 82%. I'll go 85. I don't know that I'd feel as confident as to go 90. We'll see what their portal opens for them tomorrow, which is freaking crazy in week 4 of college football. But yeah, I'll go 85 on this, somewhere around. I think they're pretty accurate. Florida State wins this game 8 or 9 times out of 10. They're just more talented. They're just better. Virginia Tech's getting embarrassed by Old Dominion. Now I'll go 90. I'll go 90%. They're getting embarrassed by Old Dominion at home. Yeah, Florida State's beating this team. I'm not concerned at all.
All right, I'm following the FPI metrics here. I'm going to go 87.8. I think Florida State does win the game. There is a chance they lose. Obviously, in college football, anything can happen. But I would be very surprised if Florida State lost this game. 87.8, official RPI.
Dude, you're going to hate this one. In Raleigh, they got 64%. I'm going to go.
Is Hunter watching right now?
Probably. If not, he'll catch the replay. I'll go 70%. I'll go a little higher. I know it's Raleigh. I know it's a House of Nightmares. I think they're trash, man. They needed a miracle to beat Wake. I know you can't play the transitive property with everything, but again, we only have 2 or 3 data points for every team so far. I'll go 70%. You win in Raleigh. I think this team, what happened in 2012 is not, and what happened in 2022 it has no impact on this team. Right. And so it does for our mental health. I think you win this 7 out of 10 times in Raleigh. So 70% feels right.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Very tough place to play. I'm sure they'll make it a night game. It's going to be tough, a tough environment. But I'm just not impressed with NC State right now. They needed a mini miracle to win. I will go 66% roughly that Florida State wins the game.
And then UF, they've got 45% roughly. 40.
They need to adjust that.
Yeah, I'll go 65% at this point. I'm also figuring they won't have a coach at that point, and they will have some opt-outs. I also don't know that DJ Lagway's their quarterback, depending on how many interceptions he throws between now and then. And I hope he is their quarterback when they play. But yeah, I think there's 65% chance that Florida State wins that. I think Florida's still talented. The Swamp is still tough, but that's an FSU win for sure.
Despite being a very talented team in a extremely hostile environment, you and I have both been to many games in the Swamp. I'll go as high as 70% for that game. I just feel confident. LSU did not play well yesterday at all, and they still covered the spread. Thank you. You helped me out on my I won't say it because they don't sponsor us, but I have a betting app of a local Florida company. But yeah, I'd say as of today, 70% Florida State. I feel good about that.
Dude, when you said that, like, you ever just see something that like just shocks you and you're like, holy crap, what did I just see? Could you imagine they go in there after everything that we thought over the last year or whatever? Yeah, like, and we go into that and you're a big favorite, or you have 70% on the FPI or whatever.
It's another like 37-7 type game from 2013. And that was a disappointment of a game because we had scored 40 points in every game leading up to that.
Yeah. Well, 37. Yeah. Much like right now, I'm not disappointed. I would not. 37 is fine with me if they score that Swamp, because there ain't no way in hell that Florida's offense scores that. So
no.
But we'll see. Okay. Here's a good finisher for that. Florida State supposed to lose 3 more games, right? Finish 9-3.
Yep.
If I told you right now that Florida State finished 9-3, if I'd have told you at the beginning of the year, you would not have been that sad, right? You'd be like, great, I got one of those wins. Maybe we got 2. We lost somebody we shouldn't. Whatever. 9-3. If I told you that Florida State finished 9-3, you'd be a little disappointed right now, wouldn't you?
I don't think so, because in most college seasons, you're going to beat someone you're not supposed to beat, but then there's going to be that one random game that you just lose to someone, and you're like, holy crap, how did that just happen? I need to see more from this team before I have the confidence that they're going to beat every team they should beat. 9-3, I definitely see possible. I think 11-1 is possible, honestly. I really do. This team's probably not going 12-0. But I could see 11-1 going to Charlotte and then finding themselves in a playoff. Even if they lose in Charlotte, I think they still end up in a playoff with it now being a 12 team. But I cannot get fully on board with 9-3 until I see this team a few more weeks. I think the Virginia game, to me, is going to tell me the most. And we'll see what happens with Miami and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be so much a prisoner of the moment. I just think that with where they're at right now and with where the other teams on the schedule are, the tough games that you thought you had, right? Like Miami, Pitt, NC State, Florida, Clemson, really all of them besides Miami.
Schedule got easier.
Yeah, the schedule is much easier than you thought it would be. It'd be a little disappointing to be as high as we are right now, just both emotionally and in the rankings and everything else, finish with 3 losses. Again, if you'd have told at the beginning of the year you're going 9-3, you got a chance in a bowl game to get to a 10-win season, you certainly would have taken that after a 10-loss season. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I'd be a little I really think that they need to go 10-2 at this point. And I know that's tough to do.
Capable.
Yeah.
I think they're capable. And I think, we did not, and this is nothing against Tim because he seems like a great kid, but DJU just did not have the leadership factor that you need from a quarterback. Tommy has that leadership factor. Yeah. He has the it factor. He speaks, people listen, and that was very clear when you listen to all the post-game interviews after Alabama and from the past 2 weeks. I think Tommy C, if he stays healthy, I think this is a playoff team. I'll say that much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm in full agreement. I'm trying to think right now, like just how like they should. They're good enough right now. They got to stay healthy on the offense and defensive lines, and then at quarterback too. All right, let's give James some love. Harlan, can you play something for us, and then we'll get James on here.
Touchdown, Florida State! Touchdown, FSU!
What would, James, thank you for the love. I appreciate you, my man. What would you speculate our ranking would be, and what would our regular season record be if we beat Miami? So James didn't ask this specifically, but I'm going to assume that we beat Virginia too, right? I'll just assume that like it's not like a loss to Virginia and then a win against Miami. If we beat Miami, I think we finish at worst 11-1. Like I don't see another team on the schedule that you should really lose to. Maybe you trip up in Death Valley. Maybe Florida pulls it together and you lose in the swamp. Or maybe you beat both of them and you just drop a game you're not supposed to, right? Notre Dame dropped a game they weren't supposed to last year. Ohio State lost a couple of games last year. You can be a really good team and just drop a game. Miami was rolling early in the year and they lose to Syracuse and Georgia Tech. So I would say if we beat Miami, I would put us down for 11-1 at that point. And I would pick us every single week, but I just think it's really hard to go undefeated. The ranking side of it, and I'll let Richie answer these two as well, but the ranking side of it, if we beat Miami, I think we will catapult up to top 3. It kind of depends on where Miami is when that happens. Has Ohio State tripped up? Has Oregon tripped up? Like what else has happened between now and then? I think Oregon and Penn State play each other the day after we play Virginia. So the winner of that game is going to be ranked pretty high. What have the teams in front of us done at that point? But you'd have Florida State with 2 top 10 wins, one of them being against a top 3 or 4 team. I think Florida State would be in the top 3 for sure. Richie?
Yeah, and if Alabama keeps winning, which I personally assume they will, they may have another hiccup because I'm not a huge Kalen DeBoer fan. I think, that was not the best hire. Not to say I know who would have been a better hire, but I will be rooting for Alabama, and it's easy for me in my household to root for Alabama every single week now, having that win over them and with the wife being a big Bama fan. But if we beat Miami, I think we immediately jump up to maybe number 4. And again, that's the contingency that we beat Virginia, which I do think, and we'll talk about it the week of the game. I do think that'll be a tough game. I think they do pull it off, but you have to come prepared. I think 11-1. If you beat Miami, I think 11-1 is almost the floor. I'll say 10-2 is the floor. But even at 10-2 with a 12-team playoff, you can still get into the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you would, right? Like at that point, I think I'd be pretty surprised. And you should be in the ACC championship because you'd have the head-to-head over Miami.
So you'd have you'd have gone 7-1 in ACC play. I don't see it, and many other teams. Georgia Tech is pretty good, but they're going to drop some games that they probably shouldn't. Haynes King plays a reckless version of football, which helps Georgia Tech, but also terrifies their fans if they know what they're watching. I think if they win, they're going to beat Kent State. There's no question about that. If they beat Miami, the moon is the ceiling, or the ceiling is the roof, whatever Michael Jordan said at North Carolina.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. If they win that one, it's on, man. And find out in a few weeks. I'm telling you that Miami weekend in Tallahassee, if you can find any way to get there, folks, that will be a weekend that not many will forget. And I know we all want to win, and I understand that. I can't tell you what's going to happen that weekend. Well, I could tell you some of what's going to happen that weekend, but I don't know how the game is going to go. But man, that could be one of the all-time classics in the rivalry. So, Richie, you got any shout-outs
right now? I'm thinking right now, TJ.
You got us.
If they are both undefeated, Florida State is going to win that game. There is no way Miami goes into Doak with a undefeated top 5 opponent in their biggest rival beating Florida State. So I'm calling it right now.
Dude, just manifest it for the next 3 weeks and you'll be great. What are we 20 days away? So Richie's manifesting and we're going. How did I know that number so fast? Richie, any shout outs?
No shout outs this week. Just shout out to everyone who got to enjoy the weekend, stress free with no Florida State games, so you could watch whatever you wanted. And shout out to everyone on the live stream and everyone who's going to listen later or on the podcast later. We appreciate all of you so very much.
I don't know that I have any shout outs either. Volleyball won today against Auburn and soccer won against Stanford. So shout out both of them for getting wins. Soccer team's still really, really good. Volleyball's had their ups and downs, but hopefully they can have a nice year as well. That's all I've got. If you are watching, if you're listening, make sure you are subscribed as we continue to try and grow. Closing in on 20,000. The Bama win certainly didn't hurt that, but make sure you are locked in with the channel as we'll have more coming out this week. We will preview we'll have a Tuesday show. Tuesday morning, we'll have a show. Call in if anybody would like to. Some good callers last week. Richie, we had this kid call in. He was like 17, 18 years old on his way to high school. That was crazy.
That's awesome.
Shout out.
I love that.
He had like some kind of testing or something. Like he didn't have to go until late. Like, I'm going to call in. And then we'll preview Kent State. I know that won't be like, that's not like a super in-depth crazy preview or anything like that, but we will preview that on Wednesday night. And then buckle up and get ready for UVA.
Yeah. We're gonna break down Kent State X's and O's for about 2 hours. So.
Yeah, it'll be a real long podcast. Clear your schedule on Wednesday night. So all right, we'll be back. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.